Hello indie game fans, it's a smaller week of new releases, but there are always great indie games, including one that should be the next big hit. But first, let's begin with Hellbreach Vegas, a wave-based first-person shooter with up to 4-player co-op, where it certainly is aimed to be played with friends, judging by the streamer cams that they use in the trailers, in which this reminds me of Killing Floor meets Rainbow Six Vegas and looks neat. I just covered Stellar Settler's Space Base Builder in my video on upcoming city building games last week, in which this has you creating space colonies on hostile alien planets, with the ultimate goal of having to build a rocket to escape, but with the twist that there are physics involved, Kerbal Space Program style. The bases here have that stereotypical sci-fi look to them, consisting of interconnected pods rather than distinct buildings like in a regular city builder, so I suppose there's a little bit more realism here since the alien environment is hostile to humans. The colony sim aspect comes in the form of settlers, each of which have different talents and perks, but I don't think it will be as in-depth as colony sims like RimWorld in having each character act on their own, but it looks like a very pleasant title worth a look. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. A long-in-development Metroidvania that has some Monster Hunter DNA is Slavania, which, from the title, wears its inspiration on its sleeve, in that this draws upon Slavic mythology. Our hero wields a powerful magical spear that he can use to hunt down enemies, and can also be used for traversal, from creating a point to swing from, to teleporting to the thrown spear, throwing it into a wall to create a platform, and so much more, which should be woven into the combat as well. There is a Witcher-like aspect to the game, in which you are studying and tracking down these monsters in order to hunt them, but they are not just going to sit in their lair to wait for you, but will hunt you down as well. The developer also talks about moral choices, so I'm guessing you can choose to kill or spare these creatures, looking like a high potential title for sure. I've mentioned Highwater on the channel in the past, primarily because I find what developer Demagogue Studio is doing to be interesting, since all of their games across genres are in the same setting of a flooded Earth in which the rich people have escaped to Mars, leaving everyone else to their fate on the planet, even having the cheek to revisit Earth to play golf in the wasteland. Highwater seems to be set a little bit before that, in which our heroes are adventuring through the flooded world, hoping to sneak on board a rocket, and bills itself as a story-driven narrative adventure game. However, there is turn-based tactical combat as you face off against troops in hazmat suits, having more of a puzzle slant to the tactical action, which makes it different enough. I've had my eye on Antipaint for quite a while, since it's just a very weird and interesting action roguelite title centered around art and painting. It is not a bullet heaven title, but rather an arena roguelite in which classic paintings are the main bosses that you need to fight. Before we get there, however, you have to take out a bunch of enemies, in which killing them results in splashes of paint on the canvas, so every level becomes a piece of art that fits perfectly with the theme. As such, it is a very cleverly designed title, so I hope this coverage helps the developer sell just a few more copies.
Welcome to the Chinese Empire.
Other games begin with Chinese Empire, a city builder title set in ancient China that looks impressive, so if you're in the mood for one of these, do give this one a look.
Along a logistically designed road network, resources are one of the most important elements of our city's economy. We can produce, process, and trade them. However, not everything can be planned. As the heir to the throne, lead your people and create your great Chinese Empire.
I have a number of games that I'm not quite sure where to put, since these are in the 30 to 80 employees size, so they are technically independent but are not the classic indie teams that you think of if you know where I'm coming from, with French developer Artifact Studio being one such company. but their games have been good, which makes Crown Wars the Black Prince of note, a tactical RPG set in a brutal medieval world, being a retelling of the 100 Years' War, but appears to have dark fantasy elements due to the presence of a cult.
I've been lucky that so far in my career I've always managed to work on stuff that I want to do.
Similarly, developer and game documentary maker Digital Eclipse was acquired by Atari after their excellent work on Atari 50, so it's not exactly an indie developer, but if you love gaming history, Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story, will be one to get to learn more about some of the trippiest games in existence.
What the hell is this?
Am I being chased by an umbrella?
Everyone else was just a company or a product, and Jeff was Jeff.
What he makes is him.
I remember lying in my bedroom in the dark and listening to Pink Floyd, and in my head I would imagine like sort of abstract geometric shapes, and so I came up with this like 1K program which I called Psychedelia. Does this work? I think it works. Maybe people don't agree with me, but at least I tried.
Tempest 2000, that was the flagship game, that was the killer app.
He's an artist that just gets more and more powerful.
I want to enjoy what I do, I want to feel happy with the things that I've made, and I want to make things that I want to play with.
I come in peace.
Appeal Studios is under the THQ Nordic/Embracer banner and is a large team, hence the asterisks, but Outcast: A New Beginning is an open-world action-adventure RPG that is the sequel to Outcast from 1999, which, to be honest, I did not play, but it seemed ambitious for its time, so maybe this version will do the world justice.
Upgrade coming up. Fancy weapon module. Cool. Yes! That's what I'm talking about. Special item. Woo! That was great! These unidentified monsters to me.
Just a quick one here in Paragon Pioneers 2, an idle city builder game with production chains to create and a more meta strategy layer, where people enjoyed the original, so here's the sequel.
Your simulation days are over, Trooper.
I know, before anyone gets on my butt, of course a Star Wars game isn't indie, but I just want to give Battlefront Classic Collection a mention, since I did get a key, and it's from the people that made the Tomb Raider 1-3 remaster released last month, in which multiplayer games like this are time sensitive in terms of player population, so if you have any nostalgia for this, go pick it up.
Fight with heroes.
Never tell me the odds.
And battle with villains.
Bring me more
Get ready for the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. Launching.
The top 5 begins with Death of a Wish, a game which, from the art style, you might be able to tell that it's from the same developer as Luca Born of a Dream, having that chalk drawing-like look for the game which makes it stand out. This is an action-adventure RPG in which a boy was raised by a cult, but now has seen the light, so to speak, and seeks to fight back, allying himself with new friends as they go about taking down the 4 Sanctum Thieves. It looks like a 2D Zelda-style title with a focus on combat, but then it reveals that it might have more in common with Devil May Cry, since our hero is cursed and will get increasingly corrupted, and the only way to reduce it is to perform graceful combos and to get a high rank in combat. The developers did release a 3-minute long launch trailer which I had to cut down, so for the full experience, hop on over to the Steam page if it's of interest. Here's an awesome looking non-linear detective visual novel title named Death Trick Double Blind, set against the backdrop of a travelling circus in which the star magician has gone missing, and it is up to you to figure out what happened. You do so in a Phoenix Wright kind of way by investigating and talking to people, eventually pointing out contradictions in their statements to get to the truth. Curiously, this has a 2-protagonist setup from both the perspective of a private eye with amnesia, as well as a fellow magician and colleague of the person that went missing, having a gorgeous art style as well, so I hope that the mystery and non-linearity of the title are compelling enough. The release of this game did surprise me as well, since there was very little anticipation and hype leading up to the launch of Subterrane Mines of Titan, which is the sequel to Subterrane from 2016. The original was a top-down survival roguelite which was in real time and was set on Mars, but this game is turn-based and is set on the moon Titan instead, but otherwise seems to have some similar ideas in the survival department. You're helping the colonists survive by assigning them tasks, harvesting materials, and managing food, water, and oxygen, but every move that you make advances time, and time waits for no man, with horrors from the dark slowly but eventually creeping up on you. As compared to the first-person survival game, the turn-based variant is relatively underrated, so hopefully this game is good since it looks like the hidden gem of the week. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. One of my most anticipated Metroidvanias finally makes it to launch after a Kickstarter and a couple of delays, in which Rebel Transmute eventually ended up with publisher Llamasoft, who is a friend of the channel, with this sci-fi Metroid-like title, of course being the highlight, as compared to the more Castlevania-inspired games. It's funny how Metroid comes in first in the term Metroidvania, but yet there are so many more Symphony of the Night inspired titles with RPG progression, so this game looks to be a throwback in which our heroine is exploring a living planet in search of her long-lost mother. The biome variety looks great, having all sorts of enemies that would not be out of place in a Metroid game, but does have built variety in the weapons, abilities, and augments that you select. It looks like it has quite the extensive map as well, and will be for fans of the genre. I have previewed this title a number of times and mentioned in the past that, mark my words, this game will be one of the biggest releases of the year, also having a similar prediction for Balatro, and see where that ended up. But back to the topic with Goblin Stone. This is a turn-based RPG with roguelite elements in which you are leading a party of goblins who have been hunted to near extinction, having to rebuild their lair, breed, and go forth and fight back against both humans and monsters. The lair building part kind of looks like XCOM, and the combat part looks like Darkest Dungeon, so it looks to have a very compelling gameplay loop of combat, get resources, die, and then restart at the lair with new upgrades, and simply looks excellent. If you love games like this, watch this video for 50 upcoming strategy roguelites of the year.
The time of the goblins has finally come.